Welcome in to the latest edition of Betting the Pitch presents the Need for Seeds College Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, _G Warner, with my co-host, Big East Ben. How are we doing, Big East Ben? We got a big Saturday of college basketball coming up.
Doing good. Doing good. Excited. Sorry to hear about your thumb. Let's give the viewership a view of that.
Do they want to see? I've got some sort of infection in my thumb. It's really looking awful. But thank you for telling everyone. I wasn't going to show everyone because it's gross. But if you are watching on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, you can leave a 5-star review for us. That'd be huge. Or if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. We're going to go through an 8-pack of college basketball games today because I didn't feel like whittling down the list Ben sent me. And I feel
I will look down for you. Don't worry. We got a 6-pack.
we got a 6-pack. Well, which ones are we whittling out? How about that?
We start over.
No, we can't start over. We're live. Let's just do it. We'll start with Marquette, a 1-point favorite at St. John's was the initial number. I think that's actually hung out till now. We'll start there. What do we think about 27-0 runs? Do you think that's because Pitino wasn't there? Do you think if Pitino was on the sideline with sans COVID, do you think that would have happened on the road at Seton Hall?
28-0 run. Yeah. I don't think that happens with Rick. Steve Mazza, whatever his name. I tried his best.
Mazziella, the guy that didn't finish his he didn't graduate college, or else he would have taken a bigger job and then had to go back to Manhattan with his tail between his legs. And shocker, he's not there anymore.
That's the guy who got the USF job. He was USF.
It was some job. I can't remember which one it was. That sounds right.
And he lied about his resume. Okay, I didn't know the same guy. Great character. Well, it's Rick Pitino. Like,
character guy. You know it.
Yeah, St. John's. Obviously, Rick was out with COVID for the Seton Hall game. St. John's is also going to be missing Jordan Dingle, the Ivy League transfer as well. That didn't affect the line. I thought it would. Listen, Marquette looked really good against Villanova on Monday. They looked like they had more of that, offensive magic back with the pick and roll with Kolek and Oso. I'm also factoring in Marquette's amazing performance at Madison Square Garden last year during the Big East tournament. This game will be at MSG. If it was at Carney Seca Arena, I might have some different feelings on betting this. I think St. John's is cooling off a little bit from that little midseason run they got. Obviously, Soriano's a beast, but also Iguodala's played pretty well in his 3 matchups against them. I just think Marquette, they got some ground to make up here in the Big East, given their recent swoon, and really have to pick it up. And I think they have more of a sense of urgency versus the St. John's team that probably, expected to be in this position around this time of the season.
Yeah, so looking at Marquette, a 1-point favorite on the road at St. John's, playing at Madison Square Garden, total of 154 points right now, which is pretty high scoring for a Pitino game, especially with Jordan Dingle, their probably best scorer in their backcourt, I would think. Player of the year, Ivy League from Penn, if I remember correctly. They did get Chris Ludlam back, who's going to help rebounding, but I agree with you fully. If Marquette were able to, or was able to exploit Villanova's interior, I can only imagine what that means for Soriano, because he's more bulky than he is athletic, I think. And maybe that causes some problems for Iguodala on the other side. Just one programming note before we get into the next game on the list. Ben, how'd you feel about Villanova shooting like 65% from 3 in the first half?
Yeah, that was an awesome first half of basketball. Justin Moore was just in his bag, just making James Harden type threes. But yeah, it's firepower versus firepower. Fortunately, Marquette's firepower lasted through the second half.
Yeah, and then Villanova's fouling forever, it seemed, later in the game. Bizarre. But I guess that's what happens when Kyle Neptune is your head coach and he's just trying to hang on for dear life for his job. We'll move next to Virginia Tech, we'll move next to Purdue. They came off a just demolition of Indiana on the road. First time they'd won, I think, in that series in at least a year. And then I think they had lost 3 of 4 to IU. Now they're still on the road. Big Ten clearly doing no favors to their best team because they have no interest in protecting or potentially making a Final Four, it seems. Purdue, a 6-point favorite on the road in Iowa City at the University of Iowa. We got a total of 165.5 which is gigantic.
Purdue has shown, while they did have that recent win over Indiana, I still don't have faith in their consistency on the road. They lost the opening one to Northwestern. Then they went to Maryland, who had like a 19-game home winning streak and beat them handedly. And everyone said, "Oh, Purdue's got it figured out." And then they went down to Lincoln and lost to the Japanese sensation, which I'll talk about more on this podcast going forward, Tominaga. And then they came back the other, this week and beat Indiana at Assembly. So I just think that lack of consistency. Plus, again, they played Iowa earlier this year and beat it pretty handily at Mackey. I think with Iowa giving them a second chance to see them now back in Iowa City, be a little more prepared. I do like Ben Krikke a lot. He had played pretty well against Edie the first round, going 7 for 12 from the field. Had a bit of foul trouble. Edie did dominate. But I mean, hopefully McCaffrey can, adjust in the second contest to leverage Krikke a bit better against Edie, possibly get in foul trouble. So I like the Hawkeyes, keeping this one close, taking on the Boilermakers at +7.
Interesting. I don't really know what to do with Purdue anymore. I did bet against them on the road in Bloomington, and Zach Edey was honestly, I mean, he put up 33 points, but from what I saw, it really wasn't even that dominant of a performance. He said it after the game. He could have played a lot better, which I probably would agree with, but it felt like to me there are absolutely no answers for the rest of the Purdue team. Slash, if IU could make a perimeter shot, maybe that would have been a different story. Now, slightly, I mean, smaller underdog here is Iowa at home +6 compared to that, I think 9 or 9.5 that IU closed at home. Certainly different type of environments, but ultimately I think a good home court advantages in both of those places. Iowa, I'm really concerned about because of a McCaffrey injury. I think he missed the Minnesota game, which didn't matter because they ended up coming back from a pretty slow start to win that game on the road. But I feel like Iowa hasn't shot a lot of 3-pointers this year, which is a very close feel like mirror image almost to Indiana. I don't think have as talented of a front court. Krikke, I guess, has been putting up some numbers, but I'll take the under on his ability against Zach Edey. So as weird as this sounds, as much as I support home court, I'm still going to take Iowa. Actually, what am I talking about? But if I'm close, I was close just in that moment of somehow forgetting my home field necessity. But 6 points. I'll take Iowa. I just don't know if they're going to win, which makes it really hard for me when I take 6. But at home, and I do that all the time, just really scared of fading Zach Edey. So now I'll move to the game I almost got us to a second ago. We'll go to Virginia Tech. They're on the road at NC State, currently a 3-point underdog. Totals at 145, which feels pretty high. Do we have a Hunter Couture status by any chance for this one?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I watched the Virginia Tech game against uh, Virginia. I really like the Sean Padula guy, but I think NC State has enough athleticism in their backcourt to shut him down.
Yep.
Virginia Tech has struggled on the road this year. NC State played pretty well at home. I just think these are just two evenly matched teams, and I got to give the advantage to possession to the home team.
Did you happen to catch NC State and Wake Forest, by the way?
I did not. Oh, is that when Godfrey got ejected? I saw the ejection.
Godfrey has not been there for a long time. Kevin
Oh, what's
Keats.
the new guy's name?
Kevin Keats. I think he's been there 7 years, but who knows? I wouldn't call him new. I mean, one of the most bizarre double technicals in the first half of a game off of a sort of questionable foul call out on the court, and then literally did not back off the court on like a fast break, which maybe was good defense, and somehow they came back and won and covered the spread miraculously. But that was very bizarre and almost makes me feel like he's about as I mean, that his assistant coach might be a better head coach because it certainly changed the fortunes once he was not.
I did think that was a foul. I mean, yes, the guy was straight up, but his momentum was carrying into
Okay, but here we go. He was wearing a mask, Kevin Keats was, because he was feeling under the weather, I guess non-COVID, because if it was COVID, he'd be a Patino sitting on the bench or somewhere else at his home. Do you think he was just trying to keep himself away from infecting his players to try to take that ejection? Because to me, a straight up foul in the first half when you're in a relatively close game and it hasn't been that poorly officiated. You're not down 20 points. You're not down 15 points. I think it was like a 5 point game. To get two technicals right there, I think it ended up extending. They made all the fourth free throws. Boopy Miller did, and it extended the lead to 10. For me, I'm fully in the camp of I'd get ejected way more than most of these coaches if I was on the sidelines. But to me, it didn't seem like that big of a deal.
And he's got some issues. I don't know if you saw that BYU game earlier in the year. He also got ejected in that one.
In Vegas, I
Um,
think. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, Mr. Keats might have to make some visits to anger management in the offseason.
Yeah, he might. And that actually gave me some time to look. So Hunter Couture did come back for the Virginia game. I did not catch that one, but he was pretty much his old self. I think he was concussed in that Clemson victory. And let's see, he had 112.1 rating. So he was pretty good. I think somewhat like his old self. Um, and so I mean, NC State, they had a huge comeback win against Wake Forest. To me, this is probably a lower rent version of Wake Forest. I'm really impressed with what I saw from Wake Forest. Incredible they didn't win that game. But Virginia Tech, they want to shoot a ton of threes. They're, I think, a little bit more limited offensively because that's kind of their game at this point. And so I think I'm with you. I'll go with NC State at home, only laying the three, though I gotta say Kevin Keats is a roller coaster I'm not really looking forward to. I don't think I've had much success when my coach gets ejected on covering the spreads. We'll move next to San Francisco. They're hosting St. Mary's, coming over a short trip from Moraga. Currently, St. Mary's a 1 point favorite on the road with a very different total than anything we've been talking about so far, a total of 128.
Yeah, St. Mary's has really started shooting the ball well from their really icy start. They really picked it up in conference play. Second in the West Coast Conference. San Francisco, meanwhile, is kind of slowing down a bit. I know they did beat Loyola, but they don't have that great of a resume for a team that's 52 in Ken Ball. Best win this season is the neutral win over. Oh, I thought it was Oregon. No, it's a semi-home win over Minnesota. So they still really haven't beat them. But I mean, St. Mary's obviously isn't the Jeff Goodman Final Four team that Jeff Goodman thought they were going to be.
Uh,
But they have picked it up. They've won five. They've won five straight. I was really impressed by them. Honestly, the game that's sticking with me was that win at Colorado State. Colorado State was, I think, 17th in the country. Everyone was starting to learn about Colorado State, get on Colorado State bandwagon. That arena was crazy, and they went and they took care of business. So with that being kind of like my recency bias memory of St. Mary's on the road, I like the Gales here.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, San Francisco, they had that huge win on the road at Vanderbilt. Maybe that would be their most impressive of the season. Not a lot to pick from on that list. And I feel like San Francisco, they've had a history of coaches who just knew how to game the analytics system and to make their rating a lot higher than it should be based on their talents. It's definitely a Kyle Smith thing, definitely a Todd Golden thing, or not Todd Golden, whatever the Golden guy that went to Florida is. Todd Golden, I think, was a football coach. Anyway, regardless, Al Golden was whatever. Todd Golden, whoever his name is, that's what they do. They're analytically savvy, but sometimes I think it makes them a little bit more respected. I'll go with the home team there, though. I'll take +1 on San Francisco. We'll next go to Iowa State visiting TCU. We have TCU right now a 4 point favorite, total at 144. It's a brutal Big 12 so far to start this season, to say the least.
Yeah, and I've totally flipped on TCU. I was one of their biggest haters earlier in the year, but now I've seen what they can do with home wins over Oklahoma, the big one against Houston, and then being robbed from that win at the Fog against Kansas.
You could also argue robbed against Cincinnati because they, I think, led for I think it went to overtime on Tuesday night or Wednesday night, whatever game day it was this week. I think they led the entire game. Were never outside the number, it felt, until the final whistle blew or the buzzer went off. TCU to me, I mean, I figured you were down on them because of the wedding fund that disappeared when they hit a three at the buzzer to close out that game that we were at in Denver in the NCAA tournament last year that Barstool tried to steal my video from. But I feel like TCU to me, I mean, I was looking around and the number came out. I think it was like 3.5, then it popped to 4, and then it went down to 3. And I was like, ooh, do I play it here? Now we're up to 4. That's probably about right to me. I feel like Iowa State is just a really tough team to play against. They're so physical. But the nice part is when they go on the road, I feel like they're less likely to get the whistles that they're looking for. So Iowa State to me are play at home and try to fade on the road. So I'm waiting to see if TCU drops, but I'll go with TCU and take them against the spread. Well, next move
And
to
my negativity was not due to that game. That was one of the lowest points in my life, but it was due to the fact that they should have lost to Georgetown earlier in the season.
got it. Well, thank you for clearing that up. We'll go to a bad call. They missed the travel or something like that.
This TCU player stepped out of bounds before hitting the three.
There we go. Well, maybe the technically Christian University is getting it's reverting to the mean in terms of the luck score, considering what happened at KU after that Georgetown loss. I feel like they'd rather probably win. Well, hard to say, but it's probably better for the resume not to have a Georgetown loss on it. We'll move next to Connecticut visiting Villanova. Connecticut currently a 4-point favorite, total of 139.5 points because they really don't want to give you a push on that one. Villanova coming off a really good first half 3-point shooting performance at Marquette, as we already mentioned. Now they get to do it at home. Uh, I'm assuming the XL Center, or not the XL Center. I'm assuming they're playing this in downtown at Wells Fargo. Not a sponsor of this podcast. They'll be playing at WF Arena in Philadelphia. What do we think about UConn? You trying to get in the way of that choo-choo train? Oh,
You know what
for
that
for
sound is?
for people listening, I didn't hear anything. They don't hear anything. So it looked like you were dribbling very large basketballs or beach.
Those reverberations weren't coming through.
No, I didn't get them.
Okay, well that's the sound of clinging coming back. Made his return at home against Creighton. Absolutely, UConn absolutely demolished them, held them under 50 points. That was that game, I believe, that game, at the XL Center. But
Mm.
anyway, UConn is at full strength again. I really think the only way to beat UConn is the way Stephen Hall beat UConn, which is to be physical with them, get up in their grill, get them out of rhythm. Villanova is not that type of team. Um, UConn's been pretty good at defending the three ball in conference play. I mean, their one hope is if Dixon gets red hot, which he's liable to do, and is able to pull Klingon or Samson Johnson out from under the paint. Um, but yeah, I just think this UConn team is now at full strength. Villanova has been super shaky. I know it's at 4 points, but you're not supposed to back road favorites. But I think this UConn team has proven their mettle time and time again, being able to cover the spread.
I mean, you're allowed to back road favorites. I've just never had much success with it, and I haven't really seen many people that have. Um, that sound that no one heard, the reverberations of Donovan Clingan returning to the lineup. I really do respect the creativity, and I think that's why people love at Big East Ben on Twitter on this podcast. But I just feel like the biggest matchup here is Dixon, who wants to go inside at probably 6'8", maybe generous against a 7-footer in Donovan Clingan. So give me the road favorite here. I'll take UConn -4, even though it's hurting my being to do such a thing. Move next to the Mountain West and what I think might be one of the best conferences in basketball this year so far. We'll see when they hit the NCAA tournament and get screwed and play other like smaller name teams that are the best of their leagues, and it won't probably end up turning out to look very good. But we got San Diego State visiting Boise State. The big question about San Diego State is how they perform on the road, but they're currently a 1-point favorite on the road at Boise, and the total is 137.
Yeah, I don't know why. I mean, they got blown out by New Mexico at the pit, barely squeaked by San Jose State. I guess people are, still thinking about the Gonzaga win. That seems like ancient history at this time. Uh, I don't know a ton about Boise State. I know you're more the Mountain West expert on them.
Don't worry, I
And we
got you.
love their assistant coach. Their coach is the guy who eats fire.
The guy I met in the Athens airport. Yeah, baby.
Leon Rice. Yeah. Um, I mean, they have pretty good wins this year. One on the road at Nevada. No easy task. Also took care of business against Colorado State at home. Yeah, I mean, this line doesn't make any sense to me. I'll take Boise.
Yeah, I think it makes sense because San Diego State made a run to the NCAA tournament last year. They put Kawhi Leonard in the NBA, though he's currently not making shots for San Diego State currently, obviously. Um, I think this is a good opportunity for San Diego State to try to get that road. I don't know if I'm allowed to say road monkey off their back, but I don't know another phrase to say. So there we go. That's hopefully hopefully is above board, but I'm with you. I think Boise +1 is where I'm gonna be. I don't know that I mean I'll probably even bet it because I think San Diego State has shown. I mean, especially after taking a double-digit 13-point lead or so against New Mexico in the first half and still getting blown out. I feel like they've got some real big road demons. I think neutral courts, they're in great shape. Love them at home, of course, the Viejas. But for me, I'm looking to be against them until they prove it, and they haven't done it yet. And Boise State, while they've struggled with San Diego State over the years because they're different levels of programs, I think Boise's usually fighting around the bubble, and I think this would be a huge statement win for them. Should be a big crowd, though. Unfortunately, it's a little bit early for a start. It looks like noon Mountain Time, so. But that didn't work really well for San Diego State last weekend at New Mexico either. We'll move next to Northwestern, our last, I guess, of our 8 pack, and then we'll go to our best bet portion of the show. We'll start with Northwestern, I guess, before we get there. Currently, they're a 3-point underdog on the road at Nebraska. Totals of 145.5.
Tominaga game, Tominaga game, Tominaga game. Northwestern's defense has been deplorable since the start of Big East play. They're last in almost every single KenPom metric. Um, you know, have made things close up in Madison against Wisconsin on the road, but got their doors absolutely blown off by Illinois. And I believe that was Illinois' first game without Terrence Shannon. The
I think so.
news drop. I might have flipped on that. I think he's doing stuff. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, Nebraska's look good. I mean, they looked awesome in that Purdue game. They have dropped, a couple. I mean, they're your typical, total disparate metrics between away and home. Road losses, Wisconsin, Iowa, Rutgers, T. Home wins over Indiana, Purdue, Michigan State. Road loss against Minnesota, Jekyll and Hyde. Huskers are home. Give me the Huskers.
Yeah, I like the 3 there as well. I feel like that's too low. I did not have a great time backing Penn State at home for Northwestern's big comeback a couple weekends ago or weeks ago. I think it was midweek or some sort. But I'm not going to let that phase me. I think it's really hard to go into Pinnacle Bank Arena and take a road win. So give me Nebraska -3. Before we get to our best bets, thank you all for tuning in and supporting the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner, the best spot to get all my college basketball plays, soccer plays, football plays, anything I'm betting, I'm putting on that site, even putting out some stock tips. Crazy to see S&P 500 go out. I think closed at the all-time highs today, highs of the day. So hopefully someone listened to me and started just putting every cent you have into the stock market at this point. We'll see. Well, that'll probably get ended by Jerome Powell at some point soon, but I think I'm in for a little while. I guess other than that, if you're not a member yet, go check out patreon.com/realintowardswarner. But please, if you're listening to our podcast, it really helps us to give a 5-star review. And if you have any sort of comment college basketball related, I'll have at Big East Ben on Twitter. I'll have him read it. You can get us on Twitter or on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube. It's good for publicizing the podcast, and I'm sure after the decibel levels you heard from Donovan Clingan coming into the room, there's going to be something creative that comes out of Big East Ben. Our last comment was from Jevin34. He gave us a lot of props, and I appreciate that. as does Ben. But keep them coming, and it'll help us get more, potentially more content, because the more likes and everything's we get, the more we can get out for you. So without further ado, it's best bet time. Give us what you got, Benny boy.
Yeah, this is a good one. You're not going to want to miss this. Creighton visiting Seton Hall. The Pirates are still not getting any respect. Plus 2.5. Creighton is as soft as Chardon. They are a house of cards. If you blow on them, they will fold. Seton Hall can do way more of that with their pressure defense, their physicality. Alamir Dawes shoots incredible when he's at the Brew. Kadari Richmond is probably going to be a Big East first team All American. Um, this Creighton team, I mean, the loss of Nemhart has been way more devastating than people anticipated. Ashworth has not been able to fill those shoes. Trey Alexander splits between home and road are awful. I think they can shut him down. And again, McDermott will just go through these long stretches of forgetting that like Cockburner's on the team, and he'll like have 4 shot attempts, 10 minutes left in the second half. Give me the Pirates here. I think Shaheen Holloway. Um, I definitely think this team is taking on the personality of the coach. They're physical. They're Creighton's worst nightmare. Back the Hall.
Couple things there. So I'll even give you a +3, as that's what I'm currently seeing on Seton Hall. So you got an extra hook there with a potential push possibility. Very interesting to hear that Kadari Richmond's going to make the Big East first team All-Americans. I don't know if that means there's other players on the All-America teams or if that's just the Big East first team. But
I said Big East first team.
All-American. You said Big East first team All-American. So I don't know if it's going to be an All-American first team of only Big East players, or what's going to happen here. But
So
that was
you mean
fun.
conferences have all Americans?
They have first teams.
First team Big East. Yeah, whatever. All right, semantics. Jesus.
I don't think you have All-Americans in each conference. That's all. There'd be a lot of All-Americans. Probably would be not as I don't know. To me, not as exclusive of a list. But and the last thing is, well, we should probably shout out Aki for a Japanese player in Keisei Tominaga. I mean, because basically Aki, one of our classmates from Vanderbilt, he seems to know every Japanese sport athlete of any type. I don't know if that's like in the Japanese culture or something like that. So shout out Aki. Doubt you're listening. It's probably very, very late in Japan right now. But Casey Tominaga, every time he makes a shot, I think of you. And then the last but not least, I'm pretty interested to hear what the home splits are for Trey Alexander when he's a 30% three-point shooter this year.
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah, I'm sure they're not good though, because if he's 30% overall, and there are some splits in there in some way, then it's probably not looking so good.
We can just talk about the 3-point shooting. I mean, what was that game at UNLV? He was 1 for 13 at UNLV.
I literally looked it up the other day. He was 30% on the year, which is horrible. Like, you should not be shooting.
State.
Yeah. And surprise, surprise, they lost both of those games. And now Creighton goes on the road and they're favored at Seton Hall. I mean, I think we've both been on the record of saying how much we don't really believe in Shaheen Holloway, but they keep getting wins. They're leading the Big East right now, which no one had, to say the least. I think there was a 3-headed monster, which I think initially Marquette was favored. Creighton was second favorite, and UConn was actually third favorite. Interesting. Probably something we should have gone into a little bit further way back when. But there was certainly some questions about what UConn had lost in the offseason. But I guess it's probably time for me to get into my best bet. So let's get into it. Okay. Well, that was a good start. We're going to start this one more time. So this is the Need for Seeds podcast on the Betting the Pitch Podcast Network. You just heard Big East Ben. He gave you his best bet, and it's actually Seton Hall +3. Give him that extra hook, because that's what we got at Bet Online right now. Good, a 3-point underdog at home for Creighton this weekend. I'm going to stay with another home team that same window early on the Saturday card. I'm going to go with the Texas Longhorns, a 1.5-point favorite at home to Baylor. Baylor with a horrible... You're not allowed to do that. Baylor with a horrible 3-point shooting performance on the road at K-State. in a weird type of scenario where they're two best friends going against each other. Former assistant Jerome Tang taking out Scott Drew. Well, now Baylor goes on the road to Texas, and unfortunately, I think it's going to be another really tough environment. And to me, Baylor's getting too much respect for an offense that doesn't have much defense behind them. So grab Seton Hall +3 at Big East Ben's pick, and grab Texas -1.5 for the real underscore G Warner. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch. If you have not signed up at Bet Online, where we got all our lines on today's episode from, go check that out. There's a link in the podcast description, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or on YouTube. There's also a link to Sportsbetting.ag, a sister site to Bet Online. And both are giving bonuses for first-time depositors, 50% at Bet Online, 100% at Sportsbetting.ag. So I would check that one out first if you haven't already. Do you have any parting words for us, for me, for the people at Big East Ben?
I apologize for that gesture. That was classless.
Yeah. I'm not going to even speak of this, but if you want to watch it on video, it's probably within the 31st minute of this episode. Thank you for tuning in. And hopefully Ben will be on his best behavior next year when we do it live from Westminster, Colorado on January 26th. And we're done.
How many years